Hello, everybody. We have made it to week number 5. You have turned in your major paper, your professional genre, and we are getting down to the wire here. So just a couple of things to let you know about this week and what you're supposed to do this week. This should be a fairly easy week for you. And so I'll just walk you through what we have on the books for this week, and then that'll be it. So you turned in your paper yesterday. I'm assuming you watch these on Mondays. I don't know why I think that, but you can watch them whatever day you want. But if you're watching this on a Monday, you will have turned in your paper yesterday. Um, anyway, on Sunday, you turned in your paper, and I will read those and give you feedback on them as soon as possible. It usually takes me about a week to get through them all, but as I mentioned in a previous video, I am working full-time teaching kids to ride horses all summer. So during when this class is going, I might be a little bit slower than normal to get those back to you, but either way, you will have plenty of time to read through that feedback and work on revising for the second draft, which is not due until next week. So it's not due this week, it's due next week. So this week, I will be reading them, giving you some feedback, and then you can use that feedback to revise for the second draft. So for this week, you do have a reading, of course. This reading is quite a bit longer than the one from last week. It's the last longish one. It's still not. I mean, I think this is the longest one, and this is an academic journal article, and the intended audience is people like me. So it is written for the discourse community of composition professors, writing instructors at universities, etc. So it might be a little bit more difficult for you simply because you are not the intended audience and you are not a member of that discourse community. And that tells you something about writing, right? If you're not a member of a discourse community, you may not be able to understand their writing the same way that people who are members. And that tells you something about your own writing, that you have to figure out how to write like a member of that community, or the people in that community are going to kind of know that you're an outsider if you don't write in the ways that that community values and those kinds of things. So that's just another example of that. The text itself is about a bunch of students who are in an engineering communications course. And so these are students who are trying to become engineers. The engineering community is the discourse community that they're trying to enter. And they're in a first class where they're learning to write like engineers. This is like a technical communications course, professional and technical communications, but specifically for engineers or future engineers. And the thing I really want you to pay attention to is the part where they were asked to write a technical report and the fact that none of them were able to do that. There were very few of the students who actually wrote a technical report. All of the students wrote a typical school essay instead of writing a technical report. The only people who actually wrote a technical report were students who had experience with technical reports in the past. One person who had actually written them themselves, and then I think a couple others had been interns in engineering firms, and so had seen them at least. So this tells you something about what these students knew about genres and how they were interpreting the situation of that assignment. They were in a school classroom. They were asked by a teacher to write a paper, and they just automatically assumed that that would mean this sort of 5-paragraph essay. I don't know if they wrote a 5-paragraph essay, but they wrote a typical school essay. And so these students were not at all understanding that the teacher was asking them for a different genre. The words technical report meant nothing to them. They interpreted the situation to be, this is a school classroom. When teachers ask me to write papers for school classrooms, I write school essay. That's what they had in their head. This is what we call negative transfer. So transfer, as we've been learning, is the idea of being able to use knowledge you had in the past in future situations. to carry your knowledge with you and use that in other situations. Well, if you carry knowledge with you and you use it inappropriately, or you use knowledge that you should not have used, that's called negative transfer. So they were transferring their knowledge of school essays and what they knew about how to write for a school classroom into that situation when they should not have done that. So this is what we call negative transfer. So you want to try to figure out how to not have negative transfer happen to you. So what can you do to avoid this kind of situation? What can you do to do better than these students did? When your teacher asks you to write something that sounds like a different genre, first of all, you need to figure out if that really is a different genre. Are they asking you to write something different than you have written in the past? And then if they are, remember the steps that we've gone through in this class to help you learn to write a genre you've never written before. If you're in a class and they ask you to write a technical report and you don't know what that is, you should absolutely do the steps that you did in this class to do your professional genre. You should collect examples of it. You should look at them. You should analyze them. You should use them to help you learn how to write that genre. And then on top of that, you should probably get some advice from your teacher, maybe talk to some people who had written that paper before or written that genre before. Those are the kinds of things that are going to help you to be more successful than these students in this particular text were. So keep that in mind. You want to be more effective in your writing than these students were. And the way to do that is to follow the steps that we have been learning in this class. So when you're asked to write in a genre that you've never written before, remember this class and positively transfer your knowledge of those steps into that new situation so that you can be effective. So read that text, think about those kinds of things, and then there's no discussion this week. There is just a summary and response. So I've given a few questions for you to think about, but you don't necessarily have to focus on those questions in your response. Those are just ones that maybe you might want to. So give me a summary, same as the summary response we did a couple weeks ago. So one paragraph is summarizing the main arguments, the main points they're trying to make. And then the second paragraph is your response to it. Just whatever part stood out to you, think about, whatever. You can answer the questions, or you can, if there was another part that stood out to you that you thought was interesting, or it related to your own experience, or had some sort of correlation with your experience, whatever you want. Just as long as you are thinking critically and engaging with that text and giving a review or response, etc. So as always, if you have questions about any of that, just send me an email. But I think that this week should be a pretty easy week for you. Take a breather and get ready for your final revisions of your professional genre, which will be due next week. All right, I will talk to you next week.